In the last video, we left off here. I hate to say I'm surprised, but I am surprised. One, it was perfectly square. Two, just how rigid this thing feels. You know, I can't get over that. And we are going to make some pretty good progress today. Now, I was told early on that this is about a 40-hour job for an inexperienced person to build this, and everything's broken down into 5-minute tasks. That way, you can always pick back up where you left off. Now, I got to thinking about the math. That means 2,400 minutes in 40 hours, which means 480 5-minute tasks. Is that right? It seems like a little less than that. Either way, it's really, really precise, and it's pretty well thought out. And there's a mechanism here where you join like gear teeth together that they have you do it this kind of ingenious way, and that's pretty neat. I'm gonna show you that here soon. But let's get started and continue on. We are going to start by putting some of these machine screws through these holes. There's about 1,100 of them. And this process is very time consuming. And if you do it all by hand, it can be even more so. But I do like to recommend that you use a very low setting on your drill or a low power drill to do this. Maybe even an electric screwdriver would work better. And yeah, everything goes together pretty well. And once you've got all the T-track brackets in place, it looks like this thing will go on forever, but nope, it will come to an end here shortly, and just like a glove. Now, you can see the actual rail bar is loose, and you'd think you could just go ahead and tighten it up, but to be absolutely certain it is exactly level with the machine, Avid gives you these like machine-made clamps. Basically, you're gonna thread some T-track brackets involved, and you're gonna cinch them down real good. Then you're gonna clamp the rail to that 90-degree piece. Okay, you're going to do this on the front and the back of the machine. And when you do this, this ensures that the position that the rail is in is exactly congruent all the way down. And once you've got everything clamped in place, go ahead and drive her home, put her to bed. And once you're finished installing that guide rail, you're going to go ahead and take this clamp off. You have 2 of them, and you're going to save these for later because you are going to use these when installing the gantry rail as well. Now we turn our attention to a little bit of the similar technique we just did for the guide rails. These are the teethed rails, if that's even a word. I mean, basically the gears are going to ride on these. You can see that. And they go in very similarly to the rails you saw earlier. Now, there's one thing about these. They come in 2 sections, and when you butt them up against each other, once they slide into this T-track, they're not exactly perfect. I'll show you how they go about that and how we fix that. So I got a 4-inch spacer here. The machine says, or the instructions say, to keep it 4 inches from the front. You're going to tighten every single one of the first pieces, but you just can't butt them up together because they're not going to line up right. So you take an existing piece of rail, and all the teeth line up perfectly in both, and then once you're able to get this thing clamped in place, now you can go ahead and drive it home, and you have 2 pieces that are perfectly spaced teeth to have actual gears rest upon. Now we're going to protect what we've just done there with the rail system with this dust guard. You want to try to mitigate as much dust from getting in there as possible. And now we're going to make our way to the gantry system. Now I didn't film installing the bearing pieces that go and make the gantry slide back and forth. I will show you that later, but I didn't do it in this instance. But everything goes together in these aluminum plates with these machine screws pretty nicely. And it is a nice snug fit, and everything runs pretty well so far. Moving forward, we're going to install 10 of these machine screws and T-track brackets again. And you can see here, a lot of this stuff seems like overkill to me at the time of doing it. But once I'm finished with that stage, I realize there's a purpose to all this stuff because, I don't know, man, there's something about putting this thing together and realizing just how rigid and rock solid it is becoming over time is pretty surprising. But as you get this installed, you go ahead and tighten these things down, and then you want to move on to these red painted signature Avid red brackets that are going to basically hold the gantry to those 2 arms to the left and right of the machine. And again, a ton of screws and a ton of engineering here, but it all works out pretty well. And of course, I'm struggling to get this last piece in. Finally get it, no worries. And you want to go ahead and just hand tighten these down because I've cut a piece of material here, exactly the specifications. I can't remember what it was, 6 3/16 maybe. but you're going to line that piece up, and of course it's hidden behind the red piece of metal, but that's exactly the right height. And once you get it the right height, go ahead and what I call put the spurs to it and tighten everything down, and repeat the same exact process on the other side as well. Now moving on to the largest and heaviest piece of aluminum extrusion, this is the gantry. You're going to install one of these big aluminum plates on one side. Then you're going to lower very carefully this gantry rail onto those adjoining arms you just installed to the left and right of the machine. Once this is installed, be very careful, okay? I've gone ahead and just hand tightened some nuts and bolts down there at the other end, but at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and put in the teeth that we were talking about earlier. These go up on the gantry as well, and you can see here they slide in very similarly, like I said before. Drive these home, and again, this is one of the, of course you saw this in the thumbnail, but this is the piece I was talking about. This little bitty baby piece of gearing is only there just to help you get these things spaced out. Instead of using one of the massive pieces to get this done, they've included this little guy. And how handy is this? Such a cool process. I'm actually really having fun doing this for sure. So after those teeth are installed, we're going to install 2 more guide rails on this gantry. Being very careful here because it's not 100% secure yet. I mean, it's pretty heavy, so it's not really going anywhere. But those are the rails that the spindle is going to rest on and move about and do its thing. Off camera, I then filled in all those 8 holes as well to hold the gantry to the arms, and it glides pretty well. This really is cool. I'm finding out that this is the hidden gem of this machine, is that you know every little nuance about how it's put together. And that, to me, even at this stage in the game, is going to be invaluable. Because if you know the machine you're working on and you're working with, all the better. Now, I've used CNC machines before that came packed and ready to go. How convenient is that? But I've always been worried if something were to go wrong, I would just have no clue. Not with this process. I think all makers are better for it using this type of machinery if they've put it all together. And it's been great. All right, that's all I got. See you on the next one.